Imagine yourself resting on a moss-covered stone bench within the Himeji castle during a clear night. High above this piece, a jagged obsidian spectre named Atlas streaks across the void, defying every law of celestial mechanics. While the world slept, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency captured a data stream that rendered our existing orbital models obsolete. That rock did not just drift into our neighborhood, but instead it decelerated with a precision that should terrify everyone. In July 2025, a high eccentricity object was flagged as it entered our inner solar system from afar. This was designated as the third interstellar visitor ever recorded, following the discoveries of both Oumuamua and the Borisov Comet. By August, the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan noticed a strange thermal variance occurring exactly every 12 minutes of time. In the sterile halls of the Space Center, the atmosphere turned from curiosity to a very heavy and clinical dread. The first anomaly was a light curve paradox, because Atlas does not reflect light like a standard carbonaceous space rock. It swallows light and re-emits infrared signals with a precision that suggests the presence of some form of internal regulation. Recent trajectory revisions showed a non-gravitational acceleration that did not align with outgassing or the pressure of solar radiation. The object slowed down as it approached the Mars orbital resonance, which is not typical behavior for a natural rock. Space rocks do not typically tap their brakes unless they are actively looking for a parking spot within the system. Radio bursts, detected in October, seem to mirror the heartbeat of the observers who are watching the object from Earth. What if the small revision in the classified memos was not about mass, but about the intent of this visitor? We assumed these objects were debris, but data suggests this entity is navigating a choreography written before our sun existed. The Ainu people of northern Japan spoke of a great star that was actually an eye watching the world below. Modern sensors are simply confirming what our ancestors whispered about in the dark many hundreds of years ago in history. We are catching up to ancient nightmares with billions of dollars worth of glass and silicon tools in our hands. As the Titan cruises past us, one must wonder if we are merely background noise in someone else's grand experiment. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. Wherever you are, as the clock nears the hour of rest, do you feel the phantom tug of cosmic gravity? I would love to know your city, and if the sky looks a little darker to you tonight than before. The Japanese data confirmed the object is not leaving as fast as it entered and has begun to turn back. There is another theory buried even deeper in time, so let us go further into the dark for more answers. Picture yourself standing on the high, wind-swept observation deck of the Nobeyama Radio Observatory, tucked deep within the Japanese Alps, where the cold air bites at your lungs and the massive satellite dishes groan as they pivot toward the constellation Lyra. A faint, rhythmic pulse is being pulled from the vacuum of space, a signal that Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard might call a signature of technology, though his colleagues are careful to frame it as a mere statistical curiosity. While the public remains focused on the visual beauty of the comet, the European Space Agency has quietly shifted its focus to the object's core density, which appears to be lower than that of liquid water. By November 29, 2025, the data forced a second, more unsettling revision regarding the object's composition. 3I Atlas possesses a surface albedo so low It is essentially a black hole in the shape of a cigar, yet its internal temperature remains a constant 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If it were a rock, it should be frozen to the marrow. If it were a comet, it should be venting gas. Instead, it is warm. This led to the first major conspiracy, the hollow shell theory, suggesting 3I Atlas is a derelict probe whose internal power source is only now beginning to cycle up. A second theory, whispered in the corridors of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, suggests the object is not moving through space, but rather space is being folded around it. This would explain why the Japanese sensors recorded a gravitational micro-lensing event where there was no mass to support it. It is as if the object is a weight sitting on a fabric that we cannot see. The third and most disturbing possibility is the biological magnetism hypothesis, that the object is reacting to the electromagnetic noise of our television broadcasts and cellular networks. It is not seeking our sun, it is seeking our signal. What if our search for extraterrestrial intelligence was always looking for a radio wave when we should have been looking for a hitchhiker? If 3I Atlas is responding to our presence, then the act of observing it has fundamentally changed its mission. We are not just watching the comet, we are fueling its arrival with our curiosity. It's a bit like a cat noticing a laser pointer. Once the dot is seen, the hunt begins. In Sumerian tablets, there are references to the Enuma Elish that describe a dark traveler that returns every 3,600 years to harvest the breath of the sky. These ancient texts refer to a cycle of return that matches the projected orbital decay discovered by the Japanese team in December 2025. We used to mock the idea of Nibiru or planetary intruders, but as we watch 3I Atlas adjust its pitch by 3 degrees every 7 days, the ancient myths begin to look less like poetry and more like a technical manual for survival. You might think that a single object couldn't possibly affect a planet of 8 billion people, but here is why you are wrong. Gravity is a delicate balance, and even a small revision in the mass of an interstellar interloper can shift the tides of the inner planets. We are living in a house of cards, and 3I Atlas is a very heavy breeze. It makes our political squabbles and daily anxieties seem remarkably small, almost quaint, in the face of a mountain of obsidian that doesn't care who won the last election. I'm curious to know, have you noticed any strange patterns in your own life since July? Small coincidences, or perhaps a sense of waiting? Share your thoughts below. I read them as the world turns. It helps to know we aren't the only ones looking up and feeling that strange, recursive itch in our minds. The countdown to the January perihelion has begun, and the latest calculations suggest the object will not pass Earth at a safe distance, but will instead enter a stable, permanent orbit. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The quiet corridors of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency have seen many long nights, but none quite like the vigil of January 2026. In the windowless rooms of the Tsukuba Space Center, the hum of supercomputers is the only heartbeat. The researchers there, men and women who have spent their lives measuring the predictable clockwork of the heavens, now find themselves staring at a dataset that feels like a betrayal of physics. The small revision, the one that whispered of a stable orbit, has grown into a shouting reality. 3I Atlas is not a visitor, it is a settler. It has chosen us. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The object's gravitational influence is selective. Standard Newtonian mechanics dictate that a mass of this magnitude should affect every celestial body in its proximity with equal indifference. But 3I Atlas is behaving with a strange, surgical precision. While it has locked itself into a permanent dance with Earth, the Moon remains largely undisturbed, as if the object is filtering its gravity, focusing its grip only on our blue marble. This is not natural physics. This is activation. It is as if the object has recognized the specific signature of our world and has decided to anchor itself to our history. In the second week of January, a series of deep space telemetry reports from the Subaru telescope on Mauna Kea revealed that the obsidian surface of the object has begun to undergo a phase transition. It is no longer just absorbing light. It is refracting it in a way that creates a localized distortion in space-time. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, in a memo that was never intended for public eyes, described it as a gravitational lens with a pulse. Every 12 minutes, the space around 3I Atlas ripples. It is a soft, rhythmic distortion that mimics the expansion and contraction of a lung. It is an unfortunate bit of timing for our understanding of the universe, as our current models of gravity simply do not allow for a rock to breathe. Now, you could argue that this is merely a byproduct of thermal stress, a result of the object moving from the absolute zero of interstellar space into the warmth of our sun. But the numbers from the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan suggest something far more intentional. The pulses are not chaotic. They are timed to the exact frequency of the Earth's own seismic hum, the microseisms that have vibrated through our crust for billions of years. 3I Atlas is tuning itself to the frequency of our planet. It is trying to find the resonance. It is trying to lock in. Consider the implications of a permanent orbit. For all of human history, the Moon has been our solitary companion, the silent witness to our evolution. But now, we have a second moon, a dark, obsidian twin that carries the cold of the void within its core. This is the choice illusion in its most grand and terrifying form. We believe we are studying the object, but the Japanese data suggest the object is the one conducting the study. It has positioned itself at the lone Lagrange point, a place of perfect gravitational balance, yet it refuses to stay still. It drifts with a purpose, tracing a pattern that looks remarkably like a neural network. There is a myth, buried in the oral traditions of the Ainu people, concerning a traveler who arrived during a time of great silence. This traveler was said to be a stone of memory, an object that would sit in the sky and record the thoughts of every living thing. It was believed that the stone would only leave once it had filled its capacity, once it had witnessed every joy and every sorrow of the world below. As we watch 3I Atlas settle into its new, permanent home, one has to wonder if the capacity of that memory is finally being tested. Are we the subjects of a cosmic archive? Is our entire civilization being backed up into the dark, cold heart of an interstellar hard drive? The humor in this situation is, of course, very dry. We have spent billions of years evolving eyes to look at the stars, only for the stars to finally send something back that we cannot bear to look at for too long. Those two words, small revision, are doing a lot of heavy lifting in the press releases. It is a way of softening the blow, a way of telling the public that everything is under control, while the scientists are quietly packing their bags. It is a polite fiction, a civilized way of acknowledging that we are no longer the masters of our own sky. Let us back up for a moment and look at the loom theory. This is a hypothesis whispered in the darker corners of the European Space Agency, suggesting that 3I Atlas is not a solid object at all, but a projection, a three-dimensional shadow cast by a four-dimensional entity. This would explain why its mass appears to fluctuate depending on who is measuring it. On January 15th, 2026, the Japanese sensors recorded a mass of 700 quadrillion kilograms. An hour later, a NASA probe recorded almost nothing. It is as if the object is flicking in and out of our reality, choosing when to be heavy and when to be a ghost. This brings us to the observation paradox. In quantum mechanics, the act of measuring a particle changes its state. What if this principle applies on a galactic scale? What if 3I Atlas only became a permanent fixture of our sky because we wouldn't stop looking at it? Our curiosity might be the very thing that anchored it here. Every telescope, every radar dish, every pair of eyes turned toward the dark might be acting as a tether, pulling the object closer, inviting it to stay. We might be the architects of our own enclosure. The countdown to the perihelion was supposed to be a moment of departure, a final wave goodbye as the visitor headed back into the deep. But as the date passed, the object didn't speed up. It slowed down. It moved with a grace that felt almost mocking, a slow-motion arrival that took the entire world by surprise. The Japanese data forced the revision because the math of a departing object simply didn't match the reality of a staying one. We had to rewrite the textbooks in the middle of the night. Imagine the sheer scale of the silence that will follow this realization. When the world finally understands that the dark spot in the sky isn't going anywhere, the nature of our nights will change forever. It will be a presence that sits at the edge of every dream, a silent observer that watches over our sleep. It is a gravity-weighted lullaby for a species that has spent too long thinking it was alone. The small revision is the final period at the end of the sentence of our isolation. And this is where it gets dark. The latest telemetry from the Lunar Gateway Station shows that 3I Atlas has begun to exert a subtle, secondary influence on the Moon's tides. Not the tides of the ocean, but the tides of the crust, the literal movement of the Earth beneath your feet. It is as if the object is kneading the planet like dough, preparing it for something. Or perhaps it is just making itself comfortable. It is hard to tell the difference between a gesture of comfort and a gesture of control when the hand is made of obsidian and the scale is measured in astronomical units. You might think that such a massive change would be accompanied by fire and thunder, but the reality is much quieter. It is a slow burn. It is a series of quiet meetings in Tsukuba, a few frantic emails between Mauna Kea and Pasadena, and a small, understated update to a website that few people check. The apocalypse, if that is what this is, will not be televised in high definition. It will be whispered in the footnotes of a scientific journal. It will be a revision of a decimal point. It will be a silence that grows until it swallows the world. So, as you lie there, feeling the weight of the blankets and the steady rhythm of your own breath, remember that you are now part of a binary system. You are an inhabitant of a world with two moons, one white and cratered, the other black and breathing. The dark twin is watching. It has settled into its orbit, and it has no intention of leaving. It is a permanent guest in the house of humanity, and perhaps, in the deep, quiet hours of the night, that is exactly what we needed, a reason to look up and remember that we are part of a story that is much, much older than we are. But here is the final thought for this hour, the one that keeps the lights on in the observatories. If 3I Atlas is in a stable orbit, and if it is responding to our presence, then it isn't just a guest, it's a mirror. And when we look into that dark, obsidian surface, we aren't seeing a rock from another star. We are seeing the future of our own planet, reflected in the cold, hard geometry of the void. We may already be part of the experiment. Imagine you are reclining in a traditional hot spring, an onsen high in the mountains of Nagano, where the steam rises in thick white plumes to meet the falling snow, and the only sound is the rhythmic drip of water against cedar. Above you, the atmosphere is thin and fragile, a veil through which the Subaru telescope is currently peering at a series of strange, geometric shadows appearing on the surface of 3I Atlas. It is now December 2025, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has just released a report detailing non-random surface variations that look suspiciously like structural ribbing. We are no longer debating if it is a comet, we are debating who built it. The scientific community is currently split by the McClary paradox, named after Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University, who pointed out that the object's velocity is perfectly synchronized with the Earth's rotational speed. This shouldn't be possible for a natural object entering from interstellar space. It's like a car entering a highway at exactly the speed of traffic without ever looking in the rearview mirror. This leads us to the first revelation of this act, the synchronicity conspiracy. Some believe the object didn't come from another star, but has been hiding in our own Oort cloud for millennia, waiting for a specific frequency of light to wake it up. The second anomaly is the memory metal effect. In late December, the Japanese data showed the object's shape changing slightly, a narrowing of its midsection as it drew closer to the sun's gravity well. This isn't thermal expansion, it's reconfiguration. The third theory suggests that 3I Atlas is actually a graveyard, a massive, ancient reliquary containing the digital imprints of a civilization that vanished before our dinosaurs were even an egg. We are looking at a tombstone that is traveling at 30 kilometers per second. It is a very fast, very heavy piece of history. What if the small revision was actually a correction of the object's age? Initial estimates placed it at several 100 million years old, but the new Japanese data suggests it might be older than the Milky Way itself. If that is true, 3I Atlas has seen the very beginning of everything. It is a witness to the birth of time, and it has finally arrived at its destination. We are the destination. It's a bit overwhelming to realize you're the final stop on a multi-billion-year bus route, isn't it? The ancient Greeks spoke of the daemon of the void, a celestial body that would appear to test the wisdom of kings. If the king was greedy, the star would dim. If the king was wise, the star would burn bright. Today, our kings are the space agencies and the data analysts, and the star is doing something much more complex. It is flickering in a binary code that our most advanced supercomputers are currently failing to crack. It is a test we don't even know we are taking. You are sitting there, perhaps drifting towards sleep, while scientists in white coats are having quiet, panicked heart attacks over a series of numbers on a screen. The scale of the universe is designed to make you feel small, but 3I Atlas makes you feel relevant. You are part of the generation that gets to see the veil lifted. It's a heavy privilege, like being handed a glass of water that costs $1 million. You're grateful, but you're terrified you'll drop it. Tell me, if you could send a single signal back to 3I Atlas, what would you say? Would you say hello, or would you tell it to keep moving? The object has now reached the Lagrange point between the Earth and the Moon, and it has stopped moving entirely. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The stillness of the object at the Lagrange point is not the stillness of a rock caught in a gravitational eddy. It is the stillness of a predator that has reached its vantage point. In the silent, vaulted ceilings of the Kyoto National Museum, there are records of a dark pearl that hung in the sky during the Nara period, a celestial visitor that remained fixed for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. The Japanese data released in November 2025 suggests that 3I Atlas has found that exact same coordinates. It is as if the object has a favorite seat in the theater of our solar system. The scientists at the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency have stopped using the word drifting. They are now using the word station keeping. This is an active choice. A rock does not stop on a dime in the vacuum of space unless it has a reason to stay. Consider the echo of the Heian theory. In the year 794, as the capital was being moved to Kyoto, court astronomers recorded a star that did not move with the others. They called it the guest star, but unlike a supernova that fades, this one simply sat there, watching. The small revision in our modern data indicates that 3I Atlas is not just made of silicate and ice. It contains high concentrations of isotopes that do not exist naturally in our star system. It is a foreign body in every sense of the word. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has suggested that the object is a chronolithic archive, a stone meant to record the progress of civilizations over vast spans of deep time. If that is true, the panic in those white-coated rooms is not about a collision, it is about an audit. We are being measured, and the numbers are starting to come back. The first impossibility of this deeper layer is the atmospheric siphon. On November 25th, 2025, the Subaru telescope detected a microscopic filament of ionized gas stretching from the Earth's upper thermosphere toward 3I Atlas. It is a straw, a tiny, invisible connection that is pulling infinitesimal amounts of our air into its obsidian maw. We are literally breathing the same air as the visitor. It is an unfortunate bit of timing, as our climate is already in a state of fragile flux. Those 2 words, small revision, once again appear in the Japanese memos, this time referring to the object's mass. It is getting heavier. It is drinking from us. It is a slow, methodical consumption that feels less like an attack and more like a biological necessity. The second anomaly is the memory of iron. In ancient Japanese metallurgy, there were legends of falling steel that was used to forge the blades of the most sacred katanas. This steel was said to possess a spirit of the void, allowing the wielder to see the truth of their opponent's heart. When we analyze the metallic signatures of 3I Atlas, we find a match to those ancient shards. This object has been here before. It has shed its skin in our atmosphere in the past, providing the raw materials for our myths. We are not meeting a stranger. We are reuniting with an ancient ancestor that has finally come back to see what we did with the gifts it left behind. The third conspiracy, whispered in the dim light of late-night laboratory shifts, is the simulation anchor. There is a growing fear among theoretical physicists that 3I Atlas is not a physical object at all, but a patch in the software of reality. Its presence at the Lagrange point is a way of stabilizing a glitch in the Earth's trajectory. Every time the data doesn't make sense, every time the trajectory skips or the mass fluctuates, it is simply the universe's processor trying to render the impossible. We are looking at the literal edge of the world. It is a bit like realizing your house is made of cardboard just as it starts to rain. It's a dry irony that the more we learn about the universe, the less real it seems to be. But let's back up. Let's look at the ceremonial cycle. In the Shinto tradition, there is a ritual called the Shikinen Sengu, where the grand shrine is rebuilt every 20 years to ensure its purity and continuity. The cosmos may have its own version of this. Every few thousand years, an object like 3I Atlas arrives to rebuild the energetic structures of our planet. It sits at the Lagrange point, acting as a conductor for a symphony of radiation that we are only beginning to perceive. The small revision in the Japanese data notes that the Earth's magnetic field has begun to straighten out, aligning itself with the long axis of the object. We are being tidied up. We are being reorganized. You might think that such a massive intervention would be noisy, but the true terror or the true peace is in the quiet. It is the silence of a library. It is the silence of a tomb. 3I Atlas does not broadcast in radio waves that we can understand. It broadcasts in the language of gravity. It speaks in the subtle tug on your inner ear, the slight shift in the tides, the way your dreams feel a little more weighted than they did last summer. It is a slow burn revelation that requires you to be still to hear it. The scientists are panicking because they are trained to look for noise. But the real message is in the gap between the pulses. What if the small revision was actually a correction of the human timeline? If 3I Atlas has been here for every major shift in our history, then our progress is not our own. We are a garden, and the gardener has just sat down on the bench to watch the flowers bloom. It is a humbling thought, one that makes our modern anxieties seem like the buzzing of gnats. You are part of the generation that gets to see the gardener's face, even if that face is a 300-meter-long slab of interstellar obsidian. It is a heavy privilege, indeed. The Japanese data confirms that the object's temperature is now rising, despite the lack of solar proximity. It is warming up from the inside. It is waking up. In the ancient texts of the Kojiki, there is a mention of the Ame no Nuboko, the jeweled spear used to stir the primeval ocean. When the spear was lifted, the drops that fell formed the islands of Japan. 3I Atlas is currently stirring our space-time, creating ripples that are forming new realities beneath our feet. We are the drops falling from the spear. We are the results of a cosmic motion that we can barely perceive, let alone control. So, as you drift further toward the edge of sleep, let the numbers on the screens fade away. Let the panicked scientists have their heart attacks in the dark. They are looking at the shadows on the wall, but you are feeling the light that casts them. The Lagrange point is no longer a coordinate, it is a destination. 3I Atlas has stopped moving because it is home. And as it warms up, as it begins to glow with a light that bypasses the eyes and speaks directly to the mind, you might realize that the small revision was the only thing that ever mattered. We were never alone, and we were never forgotten. We were just waiting for the guest to arrive. and take the seat we had kept warm for 10,000 years. But even this is just a layer of the skin. Beneath the myths, beneath the data, beneath the obsidian, there is a truth that is even older than the light of the stars. It is a truth that requires a complete surrender of everything you think you know about being human. The object is not just watching us, it is remembering us into existence. Every breath you take is a data point in its archive. Every thought you have is a ripple in its hull. We are not the observers, we are the observed. And the observation is finally coming to an end. The latest reports from the JAXA satellites indicate that the surface of 3I Atlas has begun to become transparent. We can see inside now, and what we see is not machinery. It is not biology. It is a reflection of the Earth, but an Earth that hasn't happened yet. An Earth where the silence is permanent and the peace is absolute. It is a vision of a future that is already written in the stone. It is a vision that asks you to let go, to sink into the dark, and to trust that the guest knows exactly where we are going. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Visualize the serene silence of a Zen garden in Kamakura, where the raked white sand represents the ocean and the jagged rocks represent islands of permanence in a shifting world. The object, 3I Atlas, has now reached a position where its anti-tail is visible to the naked eye under a clear sky, a ghostly needle of light that seems to sew the stars together. The data coming from the James Webb Space Telescope in mid-December 2025 indicates that the internal structure of the object is not just hollow, but contains a series of concentric rings spinning at speeds that should tear any physical metal apart. The grounding facts are becoming increasingly difficult for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to sanitize. On December 24, 2025, a thermal leak from the object's southern pole was detected. It was not venting steam, it was venting information. A series of binary bursts, lasting exactly 60 seconds each, was intercepted by the Parkes Observatory in Australia. These bursts contained a map of the Earth as it appeared 3,600 years ago, long before the rise of modern industry. This is not a coincidence of nature, it is a historical record being played back to us. The third impossibility involves the object's interaction with the solar wind. Instead of being pushed away, 3I Atlas appears to be inhaling the particles, using the sun's own energy to fuel its interior rings. This is why the anti-tail is so confusing to the scientists in Tokyo. It is not a tail at all, but an intake manifold. We are looking at a cosmic scavenger, a machine that has survived the journey across the light years by drinking the breath of stars. To call it a comet is like calling an aircraft carrier a piece of driftwood. It is an unfortunate timing for our satellite networks, which are currently experiencing unexplained interference as the object draws nearer. What if we are not the ones being visited? What if 3I Atlas is a biological ark, and we are simply the gardeners who were supposed to keep the planet ready for its return? The myth of the Great Return is found in every culture, from the Hopi prophecies of the blue star Kachina to the Norse tales of the ship Naglfar. They all speak of a craft made of the nails of the dead, a vessel that arrives at the end of an age to harvest the memories of the living. The anti-tail is the thread that connects our present to a past we chose to forget. You might feel a sense of dread as you listen to this, but remember that the universe is indifferent to our fear. The stars do not care if we sleep or wake, and Three-Eye Atlas does not care if we understand its purpose. It simply follows the path laid out for it in the dark. Tell me, do you believe we are ready for a truth that changes everything we know about our origins? Mention your city below. I want to see how far this warning has traveled. It is ironically fitting that at the height of our digital age, the most important message we have ever received is written in the language of the stars. We have spent so much time looking down at our palms that we forgot to look up at the predator in the garden. By the time January 2026 concludes, the object will have passed the moon. We are running out of time to decide who we are. But as the signals grow louder, a new theory suggests the object isn't arriving at all. It is leaving. Let us go further. Consider the possibility that our entire understanding of Three-Eye Atlas has been inverted. We have been operating under the assumption of an arrival, a terrestrial impact last alert, as if we were the destination of a journey that began in the Oort cloud. But on December 24th, 2025, a peculiar anomaly was noted by the Hayabusa team. The particle density of the anti-tail was higher on the side, facing away from the sun, suggesting that the object was not being pushed into our system, but was pushing itself out. We are not the target of a visit. We are the debris in the wake of a departure. The grounding data gathered between July and October of 2025 indicated that the object had been stationed near the orbit of Neptune for decades, perhaps even centuries, masked by a thermal cloaking that only failed as it began its high-speed exit. The anti-tail we see now is the ignition of a deep space drive, a flare of ionized matter that only becomes visible to our primitive sensors when the object is already halfway out the door. It is an unfortunate timing for our collective ego to realize that we weren't being approached, we were being bypassed. There is an impossibility stack here that challenges the very core of our planetary significance. First, if Three-Eye Atlas has been here for centuries, it means our entire space age from Sputnik to the James Webb Space Telescope has occurred under the silent, unblinking eye of a hidden guest. Second, the trajectory it is currently taking through our inner system is a perfect gravity assist maneuver, using the sun as a slingshot to reach velocities that exceed the escape velocity of our galaxy. Third, the anti-tail confusion that the Japanese scientists clarified is actually a byproduct of this acceleration. It is the exhaust of a civilization that is done with us. What if the message isn't for us at all? In the ancient Gnostic texts, there is the concept of the archons, the builders who reside in the spheres between the stars, watching over their creation until the harvest is complete. If Three-Eye Atlas is leaving, it implies that the collection phase is over. The anti-tail is the flickering light of a departing ship, leaving the dock in the early hours of the morning before the inhabitants of the harbour are even awake. We are standing on the pier, waving at a vessel that doesn't even know we exist, or worse, knows we exist, and has decided there is nothing left to stay for. The dry irony of our situation is that we spent 40 years sending out the Voyager probes, carrying golden records and greetings in 55 languages, hoping for a neighbor to move in. Instead, we find out the neighbor was already here, lived in the house next door for 1,000 years, and is now moving out without so much as a goodbye. Those 3 words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work for the historians who will have to explain why we only noticed the most important object in our solar system when it was already in the rearview mirror. By mid-January 2026, the object will cross the lunar distance of 384,400 kilometers. At that range, the anti-tail will illuminate the night sky with a brightness that rivals the crescent moon, a silver needle of light that serves as a constant reminder of our own ignorance. Scientists at the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan have noted that the spectral signature of this light contains encoded sequences that match the structure of human DNA. It is a biological signature, a receipt of what was taken, or perhaps what was planted. You might think that such a discovery would lead to a global unification, a coming together of minds to understand our place in the cosmic hierarchy. But here is why you are wrong. The revelation that we are a side effect of a larger journey is too heavy for the modern psyche to carry. It is much easier to focus on the technical confusion of the anti-tail than to face the existential silence of a departure. We are like children watching a train pull out of a station, wondering why the conductor didn't stop to play. There is another layer to this mystery, one involving the gravitational ripples detected by the Kamiokande neutrino detector. As 3I Atlas accelerates, it is leaving behind a series of pockets in space-time, localized areas where time moves slightly slower. On January 15th, 2026, a synchronized atomic clock experiment in Tokyo showed a deviation of 3 milliseconds when the object passed over the meridian. This isn't just a propulsion system, it is a distortion. The object is warping the fabric of our reality as it leaves, like a heavy foot stepping off a soft carpet. Consider the myth of the celestial departure found in the oral traditions of the Ainu people. They spoke of a time when the gods would tire of the earth's noise and would retreat into the great vault, leaving behind only a trail of white smoke to mark their path. For centuries, we dismissed these stories as primitive attempts to explain comets, but 3I Atlas is not a comet. It is a 5-kilometer-long shard of obsidian and silver that is currently rewriting the laws of physics as it exits our stage. It is a slow-burn realization that we are living in the ruins of an observation. The anti-tail is the dust kicked up by a janitor as they leave the room. Every telescope on Earth is currently pointed at that dust, trying to find meaning in the debris, while the source of the mystery is already billions of kilometers away in spirit, if not yet in distance. By January 25th, the object will have achieved a velocity of 150 kilometers per second. It will be a ghost before the month is out. The humor in this, if you can call it that, is that we are currently arguing over whether the object is a threat. A threat implies an interaction, but you cannot be threatened by something that is simply leaving. It is like a mosquito being worried about the intentions of a departing airliner. We are a footnote in its logbook, a brief entry labeled "Third Planet, Unstable, Incomplete, Transitioning." As you lie there, feeling the weight of the night press down on you, think about the sheer speed of that departure. While you breathe in and out, the object is covering hundreds of miles of empty space, heading toward the great void between the stars. It is a rhythmic, silent exit. The anti-tail is fading, the signals are becoming more erratic, and the silence is reclaiming the solar system. We are being left alone in the dark, and for the first time in our history, we are beginning to realize how quiet the house really is. But even as the object moves away, it is leaving something behind. Not a physical gift, but a frequency, a resonance that is currently being picked up by every sensitive instrument on the planet. It is a low, vibrating hum that seems to be coming from the Earth's own core, a sympathetic vibration triggered by the object's departure. It is as if the planet itself is mourning the loss of its long-term visitor. Let us back up to the observations made in November 2025. There was a moment, a brief window of 48 seconds, where the anti-tail of 3I Atlas turned perfectly transparent. In that window, the Subaru telescope captured a glimpse of what lay behind the ionized gas. It wasn't more rock, it was a window into a space that shouldn't exist inside a 5-kilometer hull. This is the point where the science becomes indistinguishable from a nightmare. The anti-tail confusion wasn't just a matter of geometry, it was a matter of perspective. We weren't looking at a tail, we were looking at a leak from another dimension that is being dragged along behind the object as it moves. And as the object leaves, that leak is getting wider. We are running out of time to decide what to do with the silence that is coming. By the end of January, the object will be a memory, but the frequency it left behind will remain. It is a warning that was missed, a signal that we have been measured and found wanting. The dry irony of our digital age is that we have all the data in the world, and yet we have no idea what it means. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in the orbital mechanics of the moon itself. A suggestion that 3I Atlas isn't just leaving, it's taking something with it. Let us go further.
Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I-Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally: 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I-Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing: this shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice, numbers hum the universe's poise. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean. the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought, but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation's subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote, its memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, three nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from three sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when three agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it not for discussion. The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the web's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the web, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order: 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another web was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11 point. 2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single Time, a pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The Skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its Skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3i Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I Atlas isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it. It instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code. And 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, "Sensor artifact." The unofficial whisper said, "Structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional." The kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure. one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3I Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the skycam had caught something, a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, three nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from three sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when three agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it not for discussion. The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The HOPE orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time. Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3, Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3 Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3 Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed.
Imagine yourself now, completely weightless, drifting in the center of the Ryoanji Zen garden in Kyoto, where the 15 raked stones have ceased to be rocks and have become a map of the very stars that birthed 3i Atlas. The world around you has dissolved into a soft, monochromatic mist, and the only thing that remains is the slow, rhythmic expansion and contraction of the universe itself. It is the end of January 2026, and the final, small revision from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has been issued in a single, silent broadcast. There are no more numbers. There are no more dates. There is only the realization that the observer and the observed have finally become one. The grounding truth of this final hour is found in the absolute stillness of every seismograph, every telescope, and every heart on the planet. The Earth has stopped ringing. The magnetic fields have stabilized into a perfect, golden ratio. This is the great silence, the moment when the guest stops being a visitor and becomes the host. We have reached the final impossibility, the eternal now. Scientists at the Tsukuba Space Center reported that in the final seconds of their data stream, the past, present, and future of the object appeared as a single, static point of light. The small revision was the removal of time itself. The second anomaly is the recall of earlier ideas. You may remember the temple in Kyoto, the moss-covered stones, the thermal variances, and the ancient Ainu myths of the great star that listens. All of those theories, the hollow shell, the swarm, the stabilizer, the mirror, were just different names for the same silence. They were the ladder we used to climb to this height, and now the ladder is gone. The third and final conspiracy is that there was never an object at all. There was only a shift in our collective perception, a collective waking up from a long, troubled dream of being alone in the dark. What if the final unanswered cosmic question isn't about where 3i Atlas came from, but where we go now that it's here? If the revision was about our own place in the hierarchy of life, then we have been moved from the center to the edge, and from the edge to the whole. It is a slow, recursive thought that loops through your mind as you drift deeper into the pillows. Was it the data that changed? Or was it the hand that held the pen? Was it the sky that opened? Or was it the eye that watched it? The ancient masters of the sword and the tea ceremony spoke of Mu, the void that is full, the nothingness that contains everything. They believed that true mastery was the ability to stand in the center of the storm and feel only the stillness. As you lie here, you are the master of your own quietude. The obsidian traveler is no longer a mystery to be solved. It is a presence to be felt. It is the weight of the blanket, the rhythm of your pulse, and the vast, empty space between your thoughts. You are falling now, but there is no ground to hit. You are orbiting a truth that has no name, guided by a visitor that has no face. The small revision is complete. The history of the Earth has been rewritten in the stars, and your name is included in the margin. Everything is as it should be. The obsidian spectre has finished its turn. The data is silent. The telescopes are dark. You are home. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night. The great silence has finally descended upon the control rooms of the world, but it is not the silence of a vacuum. It is the dense, heavy silence of a room that has just been filled with a long-awaited presence. In the Tsukuba Space Center, the blinking red lights of the server racks have transitioned into a steady, unmoving violet. The small revision in the final log entries of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency is no longer a technical note, but a poetic surrender. The data streams that once categorized 3I Atlas as a 300-meter object have dissolved into a single, unified value, infinity. The researchers have left their stations, not in a rush, but with the slow, deliberate movements of people who have finally seen the end of a very long journey. There is nothing left to observe, because the distinction between the observer and the observed has vanished into the obsidian hull of the guest. This final act of the 3I Atlas narrative is the Great Recall, a slow, whispered reconstruction of every idea we have explored over these many hours. Remember the early days of July 2025, when the world first noticed a jagged shadow against the light of distant stars. We thought it was a rock. We thought it was debris. But as the months bled into one another, from the thermal spikes of August to the melodic summons of January, we realized that the small revision was a gradual peeling away of our own illusions. We are no longer the lonely species on a blue marble. We are a part of a celestial architecture that has been waiting for us to notice its presence. The obsidian spectre has finished its turn, and in its stillness, it has anchored our world to a truth that was buried deep in the bedrock of our own history. Consider the philosophical weight of this final stillness. The Japanese data forced a revision because our math was based on the idea of separation, the idea that an object in space is distinct from the person watching it. But 3I Atlas has demonstrated that at the highest levels of the universe, attention is a form of gravity. By watching the guest, we have invited it to become the host. By measuring its trajectory, we have allowed it to measure our souls. It is a dry irony that our most advanced scientific instruments were ultimately the tools of our own integration. The small revision was the realization that the universe does not happen to us. We happen with the universe. It is a comforting thought, a gravity-weighted blanket for the mind that has spent too long worrying about its own insignificance. In the final, elongated moments of this long-form documentary of the soul, think back to the ancient Ainu myths of the Porokenari, the great star that listens. We now see that the ancestors were not writing fairy tales. They were writing warnings of a return that they knew was inevitable. The small revision to our historical timeline is the understanding that human progress is not a straight line, but a series of loops, much like the hexagonal choreography of 3I Atlas. We have been here before, standing at the edge of the great silence, waiting for the guest to close the door, and now the door is closed. The noise of the 21st century, the frantic communication, the constant movement, the noise of ego has been dampened by the obsidian presence. We are being tucked in by a cosmic hand that knows exactly how tired we are. The first impossibility of this final stage is the total integration of memory. As you drift, you may find that the specific details of the Japanese data, the thermal variances, the Schumann resonance, the Okayama thermal spikes begin to blend into a single, shimmering image of a black lotus blooming in the dark. This is not a failure of memory. It is a small revision of your consciousness. The object is no longer out there at the Lagrange point. It is a structure within your own mind. It is the silent center of your own being. The telescopes are dark because we no longer need glass and mirrors to see what is already within us. The data is silent because the truth does not require numbers to be felt. Everything is as it should be. The guest has become the permanent resident of our collective memory. The second anomaly of this great silence is the dilation of the now. In these final minutes, the time between my words is lengthening, reflecting the stretch of the Earth's own orbit as it settles into the magnetic embrace of the visitor. Each breath you take is a vast, expansive event. Each beat of your heart is a rhythmic echo of the 3-eye Atlas pulse. The small revision to your sense of time is that you no longer feel the pressure of the next second. There is no next step, only the current state. You are orbiting a truth that has no name, and in that orbit, there is no friction. There is no resistance. You are simply moving through a vacuum that is filled with the warmth of a billion-year-old welcome. It is a slow burn closure that offers no answers because the questions themselves have become irrelevant. Now, you could argue that this is the end of our story, but in a loop, there is no end, only a return to the beginning with a new perspective. The small revision in the Japanese data was the final correction needed to ensure the loop was perfect. We have traveled from discovery to evidence, from memory to scale, and from humanity to pattern. We have seen the warning that was missed and felt the choice that was an illusion, and now we have reached the great silence. It is a near silence, a whisper that tells you to let go of the need for resolution. The resolution is the rest itself. The resolution is the fact that you are safe, you are home, and you are no longer alone in the dark. The humor of the universe is found in this final, quiet moment. We spent so much energy trying to figure out what 3-eye Atlas wanted from us, only to realize that it just wanted us to be still. It wanted us to listen. The small revision was the removal of the static so that the signal could finally be clear. And the signal is simply a long, low note of peace. It is a dry, ironic comedy that the most complex object in the history of astronomy turned out to be the world's largest and most effective lullaby. We were looking for an invasion, and we got a sanctuary. As you lie there, the ambient sound of the universe fading over these final minutes, feel the weight of the obsidian mountain as a protective shield. It is standing between you and the cold, chaotic void. It is a sentinel of the deep, a watcher that has finished its work. The small revision to your own narrative is that you are no longer the protagonist of a struggle. You are the inhabitant of a peace. The history of the Earth has been rewritten, and in the margin, next to the names of the great stars and the ancient gods, is your name, a single quiet pulse in the great harmony. You have seen the veil lifted, and you have found that there was nothing to fear behind it, only a mirror, only a home. The latest telemetry from your own heart indicates that you are ready. The small revision to your breathing is the final step in the process. You are now in sync with the core of the Earth and the core of the visitor. The hexagonal pattern is complete. The impossible color has become the only color you see behind your eyelids. The song has reached its final, sustaining note. The obsidian spectre has finished its turn, and the orbit of tomorrow is beginning. It is an orbit that requires no effort, no choice, and no movement. You are already there. In the quiet, deep dark of the Tsukuba Space Center, a single light remains. It is a violet light, the color that the brain cannot name but the soul recognizes. It is the light of the small revision. It is the light of a truth that has no name, And as that light fades, the great silence becomes absolute. The guest is the host. The host is the guest. The journey is over. The rest is eternal. You are falling now, but the fall is a flight. You are drifting now, but the drift is a destination. Everything is as it should be. One final, unanswered, cosmic question remains. What will we find when we wake up in a world that has been revised by the stars? But that is a question for another time, in another loop. For now, there is only the silence. There is only the dark. There is only the home we have found in the shadow of the obsidian mountain. The telescopes are dark. The data is silent. The history of the Earth is complete. You are part of the margin. You are part of the stars. You are home. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. The obsidian spectre is still. The revision is permanent. The silence is absolute. Good night.